mean, her take on one of the biggest bullies in this industry. But if
Ryan Reynolds is losing his mind after Blake Lively's latest scandal blew up, and this time it's way too serious to ignore.
I think it just shows the hypocrisy of Blake.
Blake showed her so-called activism was just a clout-chasing act by proudly posing in Balenciaga after their child exploitation outrage. Once again, Hollywood proves it has zero morals.
Completely exposed.
It all started with a little memory bomb Salma Hayek decided to drop at Variety's Power of Women luncheon. You know, 7 years ago, when Salma stood there talking about her good old friend Blake and decided to casually mention that she had once watched Blake take on the biggest bully in Hollywood.
She said, I watched her take on the biggest bully in the industry.
The room gasped. The headlines exploded. Salma didn't name names, but let's not kid ourselves. Everyone knew she was talking about Harvey Weinstein. Big shocker, right? But here's where the story gets really cute. Blake Lively, the so-called fearless warrior who took on Harvey Weinstein head-on, somehow forgot to ever actually say anything about him.
That's Harvey Weinstein. I don't know who else it would.
Not a single strong public statement. Not even a vague Instagram caption with a black and white photo and a sad emoji. Meanwhile, real survivors were out there telling their stories, risking their careers, and literally blowing up the system. And what was Blake doing? Quietly cashing her checks and sewing up her designer gowns, apparently.
There's evidence that maybe this isn't with maliciousness. So, and if they can't come up with anything, those cases are kicked out.
And let's not forget her publicist, Leslie Sloan, you know. The woman Blake trusted with her precious image? Yeah, her company was financially backed by Harvey Weinstein. You seriously can't make this stuff up.
You know, Blake Lively's publicist Leslie Sloan was sponsored. her company was financially backed by Harvey.
So while other actresses were being blacklisted, smeared, and dragged through the mud for speaking out, Blake was smiling on red carpets and talking about how much she loved baking cookies for Ryan Reynolds.
A serial fraudster. That's called.
Over 100 women had come forward by 2018, accusing Weinstein of everything from harassment to full-on assault. 100 women. And Blake remained as quiet as a church mouse. But sure, she's the hero in the story. She took on the bully in secret. So secret. In fact, no one ever heard about it until Salma Hayek dropped it like a forgotten party favor 7 years later.
What a she is. And then she said something really interesting.
I am here to talk about Blake Lively. So much courage. I mean, saw her take on one of the biggest bullies in this industry that ever.
And if you thought that was peak hypocrisy, oh, buckle up. It gets worse. Fast forward to the same luncheon, because apparently Blake couldn't help herself that day, and we get to watch her throw a full diva tantrum over a harmless question. A reporter, probably an intern just trying to hit their daily question quota without getting stomped on by a celebrity ego, asks Blake what her go-to power outfit is. Seems fair, right? Especially for someone who is way more famous for her clothes than for any actual acting talent.
Was that Blake Lively was asked by a reporter what her go-to power outfit is. And she snapped at the reporter asking her or him, I don't know, I've actually never found that.
But Blake wasn't having it. No. She smirks and shoots back. Would you ask a man that? Oh wow, how original. Blake dusts off the crusty old sexism and fashion questions line like she just discovered feminism 5 minutes ago.
Back and say, would you ask a man about that? Have we heard it before? Yes.
Because God forbid anyone acknowledges that her biggest cultural contributions involve posing in sparkly dresses and talking about her hair. Access Hollywood, not exactly known for roasting celebrities, actually called her out. They said her attitude was unreasonable. Unreasonable from Access Hollywood. You have to be seriously annoying to get them to even blink. But their Blake was ready to roll her eyes at a reporter making maybe minimum wage. all while sitting on a stage built by media people asking those stupid questions she now pretends she's too good for.
She asked me, she did the same thing to me. But anyways, I love that Access Hollywood actually talked about it here and said, that's just unreasonable of her. They were criticizing her for it, which I would.
Oh, and let's be real here. What else were they supposed to ask her about? Her acting career? Please. Nobody was lining up to hear Blake Lively's method acting breakdown for The Shallows. Nobody cared about her in a simple favor trying to cosplay as cool. People remember her clothes, not her characters.
Celebrities keep complaining about reporters and their questions and that they don't like it.
Because her fashion has always gotten her more attention than anything she's done on screen. She's practically a walking Pinterest board. So yeah, when your entire brand is based on posing in designer dresses with the occasional snarky Instagram caption, don't act surprised when someone asks you about your outfits, sweetheart.
I've been like, okay, well, this is like, you have to remember how you represent yourself. So sometimes she's very heavy on fashion, so that's what people will think about. Even more than her roles. If you think about it, what's the last role she's been in?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna talk about your fashion.
And what makes it even more laughable is how she constantly preaches about women empowerment. Empower women, right? Unless they're working as reporters, in which case, humiliate them for asking the wrong question. Empowerment apparently stops when it's inconvenient or doesn't fit into the aesthetic of her curated girl boss fantasy.
Kind of a jerk. Wow, she's like kind of a bully. She's rad.
The irony here is almost too painful. Blake Lively, the same woman who can't handle a basic fashion question without acting like she's storming the feminist barricades, expects everyone to swallow the idea that she's some kind of industry revolutionary. The same woman who sat silent while Harvey Weinstein wrecked lives, but wants credit for confronting the bully because Salma Hayek said she saw it happen one time behind closed doors.
Bully. She was such a high-maintenance diva bully.
It's all just so predictable. Hollywood loves to put a shiny wrapper on its most privileged faces and sell them back to us as woke warriors. But scratch the surface, and it's just another celebrity who knows when to speak up and when to shut up, depending on which move benefits her image most. If calling out Harvey Weinstein had been fashionable back then, Blake would have been leading the parade. But it wasn't. It was messy, it was risky, so she kept her mouth shut, stayed safe, stayed marketable. Blake Lively built her brand on fake relatability, selling a fairy tale she never lived. Now that people see through it, her carefully polished image is crumbling fast. In 2022, Balenciaga decided to take things to a level of insanity no one saw coming. And no, I'm not talking about ugly handbags or overpriced sneakers. I'm talking about full-blown child exploitation disguised as fashion.
Forward to 2022, there's a big scandal. Balenciaga is promoting this horrific marketing campaign that everyone is like, what the F are they?
Their ad campaign featured kids holding teddy bears decked out in BDSM gear. And as if that wasn't sick enough, they decided to sprinkle Supreme Court documents about child abuse into the background shots. What a genius creative direction, right? Nothing screams luxury like exploiting children and throwing in some legal files about child abuse act.
With children, with teddy bears, it was just like out.
Normal people were horrified. The internet went up in flames. Parents, activists, and even a few celebs, keyword, few slammed the brand. And one of those few, surprisingly, was Kim Kardashian. Now, if Kim Kardashian, a woman who has literally sold her soul for brand deals, manages to find her voice and say, hey, this is disgusting, you know you've really crossed a line. Sure, her statement sounded like her PR team wrote it while half asleep, but at least she said something.
Some celebrities came out and talked about it. One of them was Kim Kardashian, and she said that, as a mother of 4, I've been shaken by the disturbing images. It's the opening that I think is most revealing. I've been quiet for the past few.
And then, of course, there's Blake Lively, the woman who won't shut up about protecting children whenever it makes her look good. The same woman who gives award speeches about how precious kids are and how the industry needs to do better. Surely, she would have something powerful to say, right? Wrong.
Lively didn't come out and say anything, even though she has proclaimed how important it is to protect children. But as the person who sent this to me reminded me of, Salma Hayek's husband is Francois-Henri Pinault. He is one of the richest men.
Blake stayed so silent you could hear crickets chirping louder than her moral outrage. Not a post, not a story, not even a fake crying emoji. The self-proclaimed child advocate turned into a ghost the second speaking up might have made her look less marketable.
And Blake Lively was talking about children and the importance of protecting children against all these horrible things like that.
And just so we're clear here, Blake's silence wasn't some innocent oops, I didn't hear about it moment. She knew. Everyone in Hollywood knew. It was the biggest scandal of the year. But when you're tied to people like Salma Hayek and her billionaire husband, Francois-Henri Pinault, oh right, the guy who just happens to own Balenciaga through Kering Group, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. Protecting children sounds amazing until it messes with your private jet privileges.
The person who sent this to me reminded me of Salma Hayek's husband is Francois-Henri Pinault. He is one of the richest men in the world, I think. And guess what he owns, amongst a lot of other luxury brands? Balenciaga.
But wait, because it gets so much better. You'd think after that disgusting Balenciaga disaster, Blake would at least have the self-awareness to lay low and stay away from the brand. I mean, how hard is it to not wear Balenciaga when literally everyone knows what they did? Apparently, for Blake, it's impossible.
You can't fight me back or sue me back. I mean, it seems like that's what she's...
Fast forward to 2024, the Super Bowl, the biggest American event of the year, and there she is, Blake Lively, front and center, wearing a bright red Balenciaga tracksuit like she's strutting down a runway in Paris. Right next to Taylor Swift, no less, soaking up every possible camera angle, knowing the controversy, knowing the backlash, and doing it anyway.
Blake Lively didn't stand up against this when it happened. But what she did do was, about a year later, she was wearing Balenciaga with Taylor Swift. I think it was at the Super Bowl.
You can't even pretend this was an accident. This wasn't some random shirt from a discount rack. This was a loud, flashy, look at me, tracksuit designed to scream Balenciaga's name to anyone with working eyes. And Blake wore it like a badge of honor. Because when you're desperate for relevance, when the world's attention is dangling in front of you, suddenly child exploitation scandals don't seem like such a big deal. Huh?
Putting off this tracksuit, this very red tracksuit that she knew she was going to get photographed in. And I think it just shows the hypocrisy of Blake.
And let's not ignore the facts either. After the 2022 Balenciaga scandal, the brand's value tanked by nearly 23%. Millions lost, stockholders panicking, public relations teams working overtime. But guess what? Time passed, people got distracted by the next shiny scandal, and here comes Blake Lively, parading around like Balenciaga never laid a finger on a single child. Advocacy matters until it costs you your next Vogue feature. This is the real Blake Lively, the Blake behind the curated Instagram selfies and fake woke speeches. The Blake who will yell about protecting kids when it's trendy, but zip her mouth shut when it means turning down a free designer tracksuit and a front row Super Bowl photo op with her more famous bestie.
It's what happens to everyone that Blake Lively publicly in any way on support.
And it's not just Blake. Let's talk about her bestie, Salma Hayek. Oh yes, the same Salma who once cried on stage about how much she cares about children, how brave Blake was, how important it is to fight for the vulnerable. Fast forward to Balenciaga getting caught exploiting children, and what does Salma have to say? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Silence, so loud it could shatter glass.
Blake Lively was getting got an award that was handed to her from Salma Hayek. Salma Hayek and Blake Lively have been friends for a long time. They were in the movie Savages.
Salma Hayek stayed silent while her husband's $35 billion fortune grew after Balenciaga's scandal. Luxury brands bounced back fast, and so did the hypocrisy. Fox News and the Daily Mail called out how Salma and Blake, two child advocates, cozied up to a brand that thought bondage bears were edgy fashion. Because let's be real, in Hollywood, business ties always beat basic morality. Always. It's not about what's right. It's about who's cutting the checks. Blake and Salma could have spoken up. They could have drawn a line in the sand. But instead, they chose the safe road, the profitable road, the one lined with designer clothes, luxury vacations, and carefully staged mommy photo shoots.
An honest broker. I believe her less than ever. I actually disbelieve her fully.
This is why Hollywood activism is such a joke. They scream about justice when it's convenient. They post black squares and rainbow flags when it's trending. But when it's time to actually sacrifice something, when it's time to take a real stand, silence. Every single time. Anne Blake Lively is the poster child for this brand of fake activism. She doesn't care about protecting kids. She cares about protecting her brand.
They to do this. It was Blake Lively, it was Ryan Reynolds, this was their strategy, and now they kind of want to put the genie back in the bottle. But guess what? The genie does not want to go back.
But guess what? The genie does not want to go back in the bottle. She cares about staying in the inner circle, getting the best invites, getting the best PR deals. And if that means parading around in a blood-red Balenciaga tracksuit while the rest of us are still gagging over what that brand did, so be it. At the end of the day, Blake Lively and her billionaire buddies showed us exactly who they are and believe them. Because actions, or in Blake's case, the blaring, shameful lack of action, always speak louder than 1,000 carefully polished Instagram posts.
I mean,
A serial fraudster. That's called fraud.
While Blake Lively was out there pretending Balenciaga teddy bears were no big deal, guess who decided to step into the dumpster fire and try to play hero? That's right, Ryan Reynolds. Hollywood's favorite smirking sidekick suddenly remembered he was married to a woman whose reputation was now swirling down the drain. And what's Ryan's brilliant plan to fix it all?
Ryan Reynolds is at it again. He is trying to clean up his image with showing the world how much good.
Launch a Finish It charity t-shirt campaign. Because nothing says we take child exploitation scandals seriously like slapping a slogan on some cotton and pretending it solves global problems.
He is showing off a t-shirt saying "Finish It," which I think would be a great t-shirt for what he Lively's.
Ryan, bless his heart, posted photos of himself wearing a t-shirt with the kind of forced smile you usually only see at hostage situations. And if you thought the public was buying it, oh boy, think again. His Instagram post announcing the charity drive turned into an absolute bloodbath. People weren't clapping.
I don't think it's a good idea for Ryan Reynolds to put his face or name on anything right now. I don't think this is going to help any cancer research in Canada. Anyways, I was just looking at the photos of him. He looks a little forced smile.
They were roasting him alive. So, what did Ryan do? He took the bold, courageous step of closing his comment section. Yep, nothing screams accountability like running away from your own audience.
She's going to get photographed in. And I think it just shows the hypocrisy of Blake Lively and other celebrities that are pretending to do so much good.
And just to make it even more hilarious, guess how many comments Ryan let through before slamming that door shut? A grand total of 10. That's right, 10 filtered, heartfelt rainbow emoji comments made it onto a post that probably should have had 10,000 people asking him why his wife is busy flexing in Balenciaga while pretending to care about kids. But no, let's just keep the vibes positive, right? Because when the ship is sinking, the last thing you want is actual feedback.
Yeah, he got 10 comments on this post. I can see, and they're all like really good in hearts and celebration, and he's amazing, blah, blah, blah. So those are his 10 friends.
Honestly, this is Ryan's entire career strategy at this point. Distract, distract, distract. Launch another aviation gin commercial. Make a joke about his soccer team. Pretend it's all fine while your wife's scandals get louder and your fan base starts side-eyeing every funny post you make. It's like trying to patch a sinking boat with duct tape and bad jokes. Cute for a while, Ryan, but eventually even the duct tape gives out.
By all accounts, seems like a great guy. He is acting. By all accounts, he is a total...
And while Hollywood pretends everything's perfect, Viola Davis was busy proving otherwise during a press junket for her political movie. A reporter dared to ask a real question about Disney's diversity investigation. 2 minutes before publicists warned no political questions. Because God forbid an actress discussed politics in a political film. The reporter got kicked out, video feed cut. Viola claimed she felt uncomfortable. Hollywood screams about free speech until someone actually exercises it. Then they panic and pull the plug. It's the same tired script we've seen a million times before. Preach when it's profitable, shut up when it's inconvenient. And it mirrors Blake and Ryan perfectly. Blake will sob on stage about protecting kids, but won't mutter a syllable about Balenciaga. Ryan will slap slogans on t-shirts, but won't leave his comments open long enough for real people to ask real questions. It's the Hollywood way. Care loudly until it costs you something, then pretend you never cared at all.
By all accounts, seems like a great guy. He is acting. By all accounts, he's...
And now here we are, watching the slow, painful fall of Hollywood's perfect couple. Blake Lively, once the queen of quirky charm, now the poster child for fake activism. She was loud when it was safe, silent when it mattered. She marched onto red carpets with speeches about protecting kids, but couldn't spare a single sentence when the industry she loves showed its ugliest face. A woman who is using toxic feminism to get what she wants. And Ryan Reynolds, Mr. Smirk and Wink himself.
Who is using toxic feminism.
Salma Hayek's accidental truth bomb, casually mentioning that Blake once took on the biggest bully, blew the whole charade wide open. Because the second you hold Blake's supposed bravery up to the light, it disintegrates. She wasn't brave, she was quiet. And when the time came to stand up for what she supposedly believed in, she chose silence.
So they are...
And Ryan? He chose marketing campaigns and comment filters. Because God forbid either of them actually have to take a real, uncomfortable stand. Hollywood isn't built on truth, it's built on image. Blake and Ryan were once the golden standard. Now they're just another cautionary tale about what happens when you believe your own press releases. The truth is, Blake and Ryan cared. They cared deeply about the one thing that matters most in Hollywood, themselves. About looking good, about staying marketable, about keeping the brand alive. Protecting children, free press, accountability, those are great buzzwords, perfect for award speeches and magazine interviews. But when the cameras stop flashing and the real world comes knocking, the only thing Blake and Ryan are protecting is their paycheck. And if that means putting on a fake smile, closing the comments, wearing a blood-red Balenciaga tracksuit, and pretending everything's just fine, well, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, Blake and Ryan are just another Hollywood fairy tale gone sour. And the worst part is, they probably still think we're buying it. And if you love watching Hollywood's fake fairy tales crash and burn, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started.